Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 22nd, 2016 meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have the roll call, please?
Council members Devine?
Here.
Friedman? Garpetian?
Here.
Nanyan?
Here.
Here. Najarian?
Here. Councilmember Garpetian, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, please. Please join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for this evening's invocation. March is Women's History Month, and it's an opportunity for us to recognize the countless contributions to our nation and to civilization made by women. It was one of our nation's greatest voices for women's rights and equality, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who said that, quote, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." As a leader who led our nation through the Depression and the Second World War, Ms. Roosevelt knew the meaning of her words as she lived through and made history. As the world's eyes turned towards the attacks in Brussels, let us dream of peace and an end to violence and believe in the beauty of this dream. No truer words could capture the essence of what our leaders must do to keep our city on the path of peace and prosperity. As our City Council gathers this evening, we ask for guidance and wisdom to dream big and work to make our big dreams a reality. As our city faces the challenges before it, we pray to see the path that sets us towards our goals and are creating a community that lives in harmony and gives equal opportunity to all, men and women, young and old, native and immigrants alike. As always, we pray for the safety of our servicemen and women around our globe who serve in our armed forces. We pray for the safety and security of our men and women in our police and fire services who are the first to respond in times of crisis. And most importantly, we pray for an end to the senseless violence, whomever the perpetrator, wherever it happens. We pray for peace tonight and always. Amen.
Amen.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the March 22nd, 2016 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, March 17th, 2016 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
And thank you. Before we get to item 3, I did want to make an announcement and a request for a special adjournment in the memory of a member of our Glendale family, Carolyn Starbird, who many of you know through the years, very involved in the community by the side of her husband, Jim Starbird, had an untimely passing. Carolyn Starbird, née Starks, was born in Oregon, but her parents moved her family to the northern California town of Ukiah when she was an infant. After graduating from high school, Carolyn attended Held's Business College in San Francisco. At the age of 19, Carolyn married her high school sweetheart of the same age, Jim Starbird, and their 47-year married life together followed the course of Jim's professional career, the last 18 in Glendale, where her husband still resides. Although coping with a chronic disease that in its later stages cost her her mobility, it never dampened her spirit, her optimism, nor her love for her many friends and family. While raising her family, Carolyn worked as a teacher's aide and later office manager for the Monrovia School District and was active in the PEO sorority and the Children's Hospital Guild of Los Angeles. Tragically, she succumbed to head injuries on March 16th caused by an accidental fall. She is survived by her husband, Jim, her 2 sons, Kevin and Christopher, her daughters-in-law, Carrie and Kristen, and 4 grandchildren. The family requests that contributions be made to the Scleroderma Foundation in lieu of flowers. There will be a celebration of her life on April 23rd at 1:30 at the First Presbyterian Church of Monrovia on Myrtle Boulevard and Foothill in Monrovia. And our deepest condolences to Jim Starbird and his family for the untimely passing of a very, very sweet lady who balanced Jim Starbird very well, and we're sorry to see her going. And I would request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in her memory. Okay. Let's move on to item 3.
Item 3 is presentation and appointments. At 3A is agenda preview for the meetings of Tuesday, March 29, 2016.
Mr. Taktalian.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian and members of the City Council. Next week, March 29th, in the afternoon, we'll hold a special meeting of the Glendale City Council. There's only one item on the agenda, and that's the Director of Community Development regarding 126, 128, and 132 South Kenwood Street, Stage 1 and 2 designs. Moving on to the evening meeting of the City Council under consent. There's a number of items from GWP. At 4B is General Manager of GWP regarding resolution authorizing the City of Glendale to quit claim its utility easements for 2608 to 2612 Honolulu Drive and 2653 Sycamore Avenue. 4C is another report from GWP with a resolution authorizing the City of Glendale to quit claim utility easement at 707 North Pacific Avenue. 4D is the Director of Public Works regarding Proposition 84 Green Streets Demonstration Project. And 4E is another report from the Public Works Director and Community Services and Parks Director regarding a request for proposals for the design build of a restroom facility at Wilson Mini Park. Under adoption of ordinances, we have one item, and that's the authorization of the city's, it's an ordinance authorizing the issuance of electric revenue bonds in the amount of up to $99.5 million. Under action items at 8A is the Director of Public Works and Community Services and Parks regarding Brand Park Lighting Improvement Project. 8B is the Director of Community Services and Parks regarding DIF Strategic Planning. 8C is the Director of Community Services and Parks regarding Glendale's entry in the 2017 Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade. And finally, at 8D is the Director of Public Works and Community Services of Parks, as well as the City Manager, regarding the Glendale Adventist Medical Center's healthy vending policy, which we'll offer up to you for consideration.
Thank you. Next item.
3B is appointment of board and commission members. It is at B1 the appointment of Chris Cragnotti to the Historic Preservation Commission. This was your nomination made on February 23rd, 2016, Mayor Najarian.
Thank you. I would like to move Chris Cragnotti to take the vacant seat at the Historic Preservation Commission. Chris, who is here today, is well known to many of us in Glendale. He has been very active in the community. He is a graduate of Chapman University. He is a real estate broker, and he is the C of GNC Properties. The G being his mom, who's maybe as well known as he is, maybe more, Jerry Cragnotti, and we won't skip Art. Art Cragnotti is also very involved and a big supporter of the City of Glendale. Chris will do a great job on the commission. I know he has a keen eye for preservation, and probably nobody knows the real estate stock, especially the historic and valuable properties, historically valuable properties in Glendale, better than Chris Cragnotti. So I will make my nomination of Chris Cragnotti. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I don't have any cards. Chris, stand up and give a bow so we all see you. Thank you. And this is the pre-vote pressure on my colleagues. Roll call, please.
No pressure.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman, Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian.
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Congratulations. Let's move to the next item.
Next is a consent calendar, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Okay. I do have a request from a member of the audience to pull item 4E. Is there a motion for the balance of the calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Let's take roll call, except for E.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman, Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian.
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Please read 4E.
4E is Chief Information Officer regarding acceptance of additional funding via the United States Department of Homeland Security 2014 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Program in the amount of $1 million. E1 is a motion authorizing the city manager to accept $1 million in additional funds. 2 is a resolution of appropriation.
Okay, I'd like to call up Kim Murphy. Kim Murphy?
I made a grave error and
The wrong item. Okay.
I'd like to withdraw my name from the commentary.
Okay, well, very good. Since we've already read it into the record, do my colleagues have any comments on item 4E? If not, a motion would be appropriate.
Just maybe a brief report from our city manager as to for what purpose the money will be used, because there may be some confusion about that.
Certainly, sir. This is regarding the use of UWASI Urban Area Security Initiative grant funds from the federal government to build a disaster recovery site that would be located well outside of the city's boundaries. So if by a natural disaster, or God forbid, something like we see in other parts of the world, did impact Glendale, that did take down our telecommunications information systems, there would be a recovery site, in this case in the city of Santa Monica, that would replicate that. We would still be able to operate and come back online very almost instantaneously.
Okay, so no cell towers.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. I'll move the item. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman, Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Let's move on to item 5.
So, Mayor, item 5 is City Council and staff comments.
Okay, I'll start from my left. Ms. Devine?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to mention, to piggyback on Mr. Kasakian's remarks, this month is Women in History Month, and had the opportunity to attend Senator Liu's awards for the Women in History Month, and I was happy to see that one of our colleagues, one of our staff members' wives, was one of the recipients, Dr. Laurel Baer from the Alhambra School District. She's the wife of Jan Baer, who's in our planning department, correct? Building and Safety? Yes. Yes, so that was quite a nice event always. It's the Senator's last event as she will retire. And I had to laugh because on her on the program, her quote was, "Behind every woman is herself." So, and to go along with that, I also want to say that the Seroptimist International of Glendale held their Accolades Awards luncheon, and it was Women Making a Difference Around the World. It's always a lovely luncheon, and it's quite wonderful women were presented with awards. But Sunday, I had the experience of attending the debut concert of the Glendale Consort. And it is a string ensemble, but the interesting part of it is the fact that Armin Kevanian, former member of our Arts and Culture Commission, is the conductor. And it was held at the Stars Theater. It was quite lovely. They did Mozart and Mendelssohn and other selected pieces, but it's just being formed. It was the debut concert was well received, and I hope that they will do some more marketing so that the rest of the community knows when they are performing, and we can build on this first concert. But I do want to congratulate Armin Kevanian for a beautiful concert on Sunday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
No
Mr.
reports,
Garpetian.
Mr. Mayor. No reports.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll mention that last week, 2 of my colleagues and I were in Dallas, Texas for the P3 conference, the Private-Public Partnership Conference, and with the capitalized "and," to actually visit a very unique park, a park that's unique not just for Texas, but for the country and the world, because it's a park that's located on top of a freeway, and a project that we are trying to implement in good faith in the city of Glendale to turn one of our busiest freeways well, not turn it into, but hopefully turn a portion of it into a beautiful park. And we visited the park, we visited the staff that runs the park, and learned a lot. Learned the road that they traveled, and which may be much like the road that we need to travel in order to implement the CAP 134 project. Learned the funding mechanisms, and there were many, myriad of ways to raise the money. Learn the way that the park's being run now, and how the funding of the actual maintenance of the park works, about the public transportation element of it, and every other aspect that's involved with not only building a park like this, but keeping it up and making it the jewel that Clyde Warren Park is for the city of Dallas. The conference itself complemented our visit to the park very much, because the whole idea of the conference was private-public partnership, and private-public partnerships were the method through which much of the money was materialized for this park. It took them something like 40 years, I think, from the initial conversations in the 60s until 2010 or 2011 when they actually finished the park, so closer to 50 years to accomplish a dream that they had. But the end product is truly impressive and is amazing. I think Glendale, if we could pull something like this off in our city, we would really be on the national map, not only for safety, but also for having one of the best parks in the country. So to me, it was inspirational, at the same time sobering, because, again, it brought us to reality in terms of how difficult it's going to be to come up with everything that's going to be required to accomplish this goal. But I think, again, the efforts will be worth it, and we should at least seriously look at what our possibilities and our abilities are in order to make this park a reality. I don't know if my colleagues want to add anything specific about I can go into a lot of detail about all the unique mechanisms through which the money was materialized, and they raised close to $130 million, I believe, to implement everything, and they have about $20 million left over that's going to become part of their endowment. And this year, after 4 years of running the park, operating the park, they're actually breaking even in running the park. So it's no longer costing the city money to have this park. And they've been very creative, and now we know all the things that they did. Also, I want to mention that today we had one of our work boot meetings, a tradition that's been running for about a year and a half now. And today City Council and staff were visiting our bus transit system, the B line, and getting acquainted with the various lines that run through Glendale and how the buses operate, what the buses are like, what the amenities are, what the opportunities are. And I think we're very impressed with the bus system that we have. We can always do better, and we will. We intend to. We can always have more buses and more lines. And I assure you there's no shortage of individuals that actually use public transportation in the city of Glendale, and we should strive to increase the usage and also increase the opportunity for such use for our residents. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we'll have a chance to discuss your observations and thoughts on the Dallas CAP Park, the Clyde Warren Park, when we discuss.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
I also want to, I think my colleagues will join me in expressing our condolences for this latest act of violence in Europe, in Belgium. Again, we're talking about public transportation just a second ago, but it seems like the favorite target of these terrorists are transportation hubs. This time it was the airport and the train station next to the airport, which resulted in loss of over 31 lives at this point, and hundreds of wounded. I condemn those acts, and express my support for the people of Belgium, but not just Belgium, all the countries and all the peoples that are impacted by this horrible wave of terrorism that's taking place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And with regard to the attacks, on behalf of Metro, I want to assure everyone that we had a early morning briefing and have given directions to our police force, which is the LA County Sheriff's Department, as well as our internal police force in Metro, to be at the utmost level of precaution and alertness, especially in the Union Station, 7th and Flower Metro Station, Hollywood and Highland, and several others. And a lot of the precautions that we're taking are not immediately visible to the naked eye. So don't be too concerned, but be assured that even though you don't see wall-to-wall sheriffs, that there are some very serious precautions being taken to ensure our safety in the metro system. I don't have anything else, so let's move on to item 6.
Item 6 is community event announcements, 3-minute portion.
I have a card from Sevada Hamelians and Elizabeth Manasserian.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff. We're delighted to be here tonight, given the auspices of this day, to share with you a community event that the Noon Rotary Club has been coordinating for the past 3 years. This is an event that's kind of really morphed from an event that started out as a bike ride, and now it's encompassing a lot more family and fitness-related activities. And so this year, on Sunday, May 15th, we're delighted to host, along with our foundation, of course, who's instrumental in putting this event together, our Fun and Fitness Day. We are still planning on having our 25-mile fitness ride, and we will include that for all events moving forward. I think that's bringing out a lot of good bikers who want to learn about the paths in Glendale. In addition, we are roll up, please. In addition, we are conducting a free family fun ride through the city of Glendale, along with a bike rodeo that our police officers are helping to coordinate. In addition, we've added something new this year. Last year, we added an urban hike through the city of Glendale, but this year we're including a little bit more of a fun gaming component, which is a urban scavenger hunt through downtown. So we're designing all these different interactive ways for you to learn about Glendale, learn about downtown Glendale, businesses, venues, items, and having this as a hopefully ongoing event as part of this event. We are planning, again, to have a lot of the same fun elements that we've had. This year's event will be at the Central Park in downtown. And I'll turn it over to Elizabeth, and she'll mention the 4 beneficiaries that we will support with the fundraising efforts from this year's event.
Thank you, Council, for having us here. My name is Elizabeth Manasserian, and I'm very proud to announce that this year our beneficiaries are going to be Boy Scouts of Glendale, Glendale Educational Foundation, Police Force, Glendale Police Department's Explorers, and Right to Recovery Veterans Group. And with me today, we have Mark Krause, the CEO of Boy Scouts. We have Susan Hunt with Glendale Educational Foundation. And we have Cicely Gardia, who is a Boy Scout District Executive. And we all are partnering together. We're having our team together to really have a great event. And I also wanted to thank City of Glendale for partnering with us and helping us in this adventure and fun picnic. And also our major sponsors are Glendale Adventist Medical Center. We have Pacific Western Bank. We have Dick's. And we have Lao Sichuan, the Chinese food chain. Berg Orthodontics, and many other sponsors that we really want to thank them. So this is going to be a fun event. And I also wanted to mention, I think Savada forgot, that the city, police, and fire employees will get a special coupon discount. And please, that's just a way to encourage all of you to attend and also be with us that day. We encourage all of you to be the right leaders, the picnic leaders, and come out and support this event. And I want to thank Mayor Najarian and Paula Devine who were there last year, and I hope all of you can be there this year. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to add really quickly that the events are free except for the 25-mile ride. And for more information, people can go to jewelcityride.com and sign up over there. And again, thank you to all who've attended in the past. I know Councilman Garpetian has also been there in the past. And this is a Rotary event, but it's an event for Glendale and to promote fun and fitness for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Job.
Yeah, it's a great event.
And in previous years, you were at the Verdugo Park, so those wishing to attend, don't neglect the new location, which is the Central Park on Colorado. I forgot to mention something of community importance, and I don't know if we have a graphic for that, but this Saturday, it is March 27th, we will be celebrating the life of Cesar Chavez and celebrating Cesar Chavez Day in Glendale. That will be on 1 o'clock, Dan Bell, 1 to 4 at Pacific Edison Park. As usual, there will be delicious food trucks there serving free food to the members of our community, as well as cultural events and speakers from the Cesar Chavez Foundation, music and dancing as well. So it's a great time to bring the whole family and reflect on the life of Cesar Chavez, who did so much for the struggle of the working class in the United States. Okay, let's go to the next item. I don't have any other cards. For this item 6, we'll continue it later.
Item 8 under action items. 8A is city manager regarding. Well, are we good?
I think we need to hold over for just a little bit there.
Sure. Skipping 8A, which we will return to because one of the presenters is en route. At 8B is general manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding Glendale Water and Power GWP electrical revenue refunding bonds 2016 ordinance. B1 is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of electric revenue bonds 2016 refunding series in the amount of up to $99.5 million.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Previously, you have allowed us to retain bond counsel and financial advisor for this very proposed transaction. What you have is the ordinance that would allow us to refund 2 different series bonds for GWP Electric from 06 and from 08. Combined in refinancing and lowering the yield rate on the bonds, we would save a little over $6 million over the life of the bonds, about $200,000 in the first series, the 06, and then about 160 in the second series. So certainly refining makes a lot of sense. We have the ordinance for you. The transaction would occur later this spring. And if you have any specific questions about the transaction, Mr. Zern can answer those for you.
Mr. Zern? Have any short comments just to
I don't,
wrap
Mr.
this
Mayor.
up for
I'm
us?
happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
Mr. Ochoa in our presentation a couple weeks ago nailed it down.
So we're refinancing our bond or rebonding our bond to save $6 million?
Yes, sir.
For how long? How long is the length of the bond?
The length of them was
2030
27?
for the 06 bonds, 2038 for the 08 bonds.
2030 and 2038. Does refinancing extends the life of the bond, the length of the bond? It just ends when it ends. It's just you're refinancing it to save $6
Just get a
million.
new rate for the remainder of the term.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll move the item.
Thank you.
Oh, it just needs to be introduced.
Okay. I do have a speaker card. And because there was no vote yet taken, there's no prejudice to the speaker.
Okay.
Mike Mohill.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. I'm glad we are basically refinancing our bond debt. The real question is, why do we have a bond debt? That's because we've taken millions of dollars every year. Last year, $20 million out of GWP. The year before, $20 million, and so forth. That's why we have this bond debt. The question is, where is all this money from GWP going to? It's not going for infrastructure. We know that. It's going for the salaries and the pensions of our union workforce. Let me give you an example. If you go to transparentcalifornia.com, in 2014, we have a police officer by the name of Mike Ulrich. Salary, this is his total pay and benefits, of $376,000. And when he retires with 30 years of service, he will be receiving 90% of that $376,000 as his pension for life. Then we have police officer Fernando Salmarian, $346,000. We have former fire chief Harold Scoggins, $340,000. New chief police Robert Castro, $330,000. Fire chief, skip him. Manager GWP, Steve Zern, in 2014, $310,000. Police Captain Carl Provivalis.
That would be Provalitis.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Ochoa, your salary in 2014 was $3,006,000. And then we go down to City Attorney Mr. Garcia, $283,000. Assistant City Manager Steve of GWP was $276,000. We also have Assistant City Manager Yasmin Beers, $251,000. But in 2015, Council approved changing Mrs. Beers' pay grade classification from 8 to 12. Additional $4,000 per month raised her total pay and benefits to $299,000 for doing the exact same job. Ladies and gentlemen in the viewing audience, this is why we have a bond debt. Because council would rather take care of our union employees and the managers of the city, not the people who have to pay the bills. Will you, council, be transferring again this year another $20 million out of GWP to pay for the salaries and pensions? This is why we have a bond debt, for our children to pay. $1.6 billion for our kids to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. I don't have any other cards, and the item was previously introduced by Ms. Devine.
Is it worth just one quick statement that most of what was said by Mr. Mohill, most all of it is categorically incorrect or at least misleading, just categorically. With the exception of citations from Transparent California, which don't give any context, two of the people he cited, for example, those are not compensation or in terms of salary benefit for a year, but they reflect payouts and cash outs for folks either that were out that came back or people that left the organization altogether. So, just for what it's worth.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 8C.
8C is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding Hoover Toll and Keppel Recycled Water Project, Proposition 84 grant funding. C1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding and related documents with the Los Angeles County Flood Control District for the Safe Drinking Water, Water Quality and Supply Flood Control, River and Coastal Protection Bond Act, Proposition 84, for a grant in the amount of $1,687,500 for the installation of the Hoover Toll and Keppel School Recycled Water Project.
Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, sir. This is actually a very feel-good item in that the city was able to be very competitive in the expansion of our recycled water program alongside our partners. You see the MOU that we're requesting with the LA County Flood Control District to expand the recycled water service to our neighbors and the GUSD, specifically at Hoover, Keppel, and Toll. As you see in the staff report, we have a $1.6 million award, we are asking that you also appropriate monies from the Enterprise Fund to complete the full cost of the build-out for this project. But the upshot is that leveraging regional dollars, as they're there to be used to build out this type of system, we can bring recycled water to the school district, a major user of our water, major customer of water for irrigation of fields and facilities, certainly not potable drinking water. But in doing so, also reduce the footprint in terms of the city's water usage. And that feeds directly into the item that you have next on the agenda as it speaks to meeting our drought and conservation goals. So we have 3 items for you on this particular matter: the MOU, a resolution for the MOU with the Flood Control District, a resolution for the design build project, because with the 3 schools and the impacts on their scheduling, perhaps it probably makes the most amount of sense to do this project as a design build versus a more conventional type of public works project. And then the resolution of appropriation. It should be noted that this item would have come to you in mid-year budget, rolled in with all the other budgetary changes, but in trying to work with the Flood Control District folks as we got the award that was reduced as they reduced everyone's awards, the grant program itself was reduced. We didn't make that timeline. So those 3 items are here before you. And if you have, again, any specific questions on the project, certainly we can ask Mr. Zern.
Okay, Mr. Karpetian.
Yes, so we are going to do a build-out and bring recycled water to Hoover, Toll, and Keppel.
Correct.
Am I correct? And we are paying about $4 million, basically, give and take. $4.5 million. Am I reading this correct?
Well,
This
Mr. Mayor,
1,687?
Council Member Varpetian, this is 2.9, just under 3 total, of which a little over half of it is through the grant.
Got it. And so this will reduce the water usage of the schools.
Correct.
And also we can use some of our recycled water that we are currently, if we're not using, we're dumping it into LA River.
Correct. This will increase our overall usage. It's about 55 acre-feet per year that we would save in potable water.
So this will reduce the water bill of the schools as well.
It'll bring it down. There's still a cost for recycled water, but it is less. It's at a discounted rate.
My question is, are they paying any of the cost? Because with this project being done by us, I understand we use our recycled water and we reduce the use of the regular water, if you will. But are the school district paying any of the cost, or because they're going to benefit from it as well?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Garapetian, they're not paying any part of the construction cost to bring the water to the school, but they are paying their usage fees and all that go with that. So meter costs and water costs are being picked up by the school. What our intent was here was to go after the biggest acre-foot projects we could, and to also look at projects where we weren't necessarily contributing, because there's a lot of indecision still about where recycled water can be used. But instead of looking at what we call ornamental landscaping, you're going to public use type landscaping, parks, athletic facilities for our children, and we targeted those areas.
And this is coming from water treatment center?
Ultimately, it comes from LAG, Los Angeles Glendale Water Reclamation Plant, and our share of the reclaimed water or recycled water that comes out of that plant. So we have an existing system in place that goes along Glen Oaks. We'll just tap into that and bring it up to the school.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Okay,
so yeah, this is not a complete new build. We have a fairly sizable infrastructure in place on that end of town. It's at Glen Oaks. We take it north up to the school, and there we have it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Devine?
I just wanted to make sure that I understand that the amount that we're allocating is actually, half of it's going to be reimbursed when we get this grant, correct?
That's correct, ma'am. A little bit over half, almost $1.7 million.
Okay, but we'll get that later on because we missed, the deadline was missed, or we were too late?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Devine, no, we'll get that in the due process that they put forward. Usually it's in arrears on payments already made. But we will get that. We've been approved for it and have the go-ahead to do it.
Great, okay. And this is like almost 5,000 linear feet of pipe. That's a big...
Yes, we have an aerial view there that gives you the route of it. But yes, it's a pretty sizable project.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a card from a member of the public, Mr. Mohill.
Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Mohill makes his way to the podium, I'll read the two other items related to this item. The number 2 is a resolution authorizing city manager or his designee to issue a request for a proposal RFP using alternative project delivery method for design build of Hoover, Toll, and Keppel School Recycled Water Project. Mr. Mohill, are you going to speak on this item? Item 3 is a resolution of appropriation. You may approach the podium. Transfer of funds from account numbers 388-00572000 and 279-00572000 to account numbers 411-00573951, 30069, UW011 and 4311-0573-951, 30069, UW011 for the Hoover Toll and Keppel School Recycle Water Project in a total amount of $2,931,000. Mr. Mohill, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mohill.
Good evening, Mayor, Nigerian council members. My name is Mike Mohill. This is grant money. Not 100% paid by the city of Glendale. It's grant money. That means that we don't have enough money in GWP to pay the whole bill.
Oh, my goodness.
We have to go for it, look for a grant, hands out, because we're a poor city. We don't have the money. Where's all the money going to? It's being transferred out of GWP to the general fund to pay for the salaries and pensions of our union workforce. I just got through giving you those numbers a few minutes ago. Mr. Ochoa said, they weren't perfect. I only got it on the internet, transparentcalifornia.com. Now, grants are wonderful. Our mayor will say, well, it's taxpayers' money, Mohill. How could you take that money away? Why would you not want to have taxpayers' money? Remember you saying that once upon a time, Mr. Nigerian? That's right. But why tax? Everything's taxpayers' money. Who is watching the taxpayers' money? We have a so-called conservative Republican mayor, supposed to be a fiscal conservative. He acts like a liberal. And we have the other 4 councilors who are Democrats, and they claim to be, as a Democrat, fiscal conservatives, and you don't do that either. Who is watching the purse strings for the people who have to pay the bills? We know you pay and take care of our union workforce. I just gave you a partial list of the salaries and the pensions of our CalPERS union workforce. When are we going to be on record to change the system? CalPERS is a corrupt system, and that's why we keep getting grant money, grant for the parks, grants for GWP. That's because we have no money, and the way you get grants is you submit a form, and you cross your fingers that either the county, the state, or some government agency is going to give you some money. It's sad, isn't it, that we cannot finance our own city. We have to come up with a hat in hand saying, please, people, government agency, give us some money because we don't have the money. Of course, we're not alone. There are other cities in the county in the same boat, especially those who have CalPERS as part of their union workforce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would only submit to you that Prop 84, the Safe Drinking Water, Water Quality and Supply Flood Control, River and Coastal Protection Bond Act passed by the legislature authorizes these funds for this very purpose. So while we could use entirely GWP funds, it would seem to me awfully foolhardy in terms of being a steward of the public trust to not go after and leverage other public dollars for a public project to serve a public purpose.
And just for the record, we don't transfer water funds to the general fund.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The city does not transfer water revenue to the general fund.
But other than that, Mr. Mohill has something to say.
Thank you, and I don't have any other cards on this item. Would someone like to comment or make a motion?
I move the item, Mr. Mayor.
And I'll second it, and I'll merely state that our city manager pointed out the obvious. This money is there for this purpose. It's made available to public entities to secure, clean, safe water, and That money is there. It's meant to be used by municipalities like us. Sure, we could take the money out of some other purpose that we would otherwise use for the city and use that money and not use grant money, but why would we do that? So I respect Mr. Moyle's opinion, but especially when it comes to grant money, not accepting money or not applying for it and using it to supplement all the things that we do with our own money would not make any sense. So I second the item.
And if I may ask, isn't this money our tax money? I mean, isn't this money that we put into the state and then we can get some of it back to use on what we need in our city? So it's actually our tax money that we're using. So I agree with Mr. Sinani.
Okay, we have a motion at 8C1, 2, and 3.
Second.
It was made and seconded, and we're ready for roll call.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman, Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Mr. Ochoa, should we go to 8D?
Just to wrap up GWP items, if we could, sir.
Okay. 8D, please.
8D is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding water conservation and drought rate update. D1 is resolution delaying the imposition of the applicable Phase 3 water conservation drought rate and maintaining the currently effective Phase 2 drought rate during Phase 3 conservation until December 31st, 2016.
Okay, Mr. Ochoa.
Not to steal Mr. Zern's thunder on this item, but our residents and customers have been doing a tremendous job that gives us opportunities and some flexibility in the drought rate and conservation issue. But Steve,
I think the good news is that we're staying status quo. There's a lot of still a lot to come in regards to the drought. As I think you're all aware, we're not quite having the El Nino that people had predicted. If you divide the state into two, the State Water Project, the northern part of this, and the Colorado Basin, the southern part, the north is doing fairly well, above normal. The south still below normal. So I don't think we're really going to find out where we're at until well after April 1st. So for us, I think we stay status quo. Revenue-wise, we're fine, so there's no need for us to move the rate up. But we will see how the rainy season plays out, what the state's next move is as far as continuing the drought measures and what we'll have to do in return to respond to that. So I think for now, good news is the rate is fine. We're status quo on the conservation, and we will be back to you probably early summer with an update.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zern. I have a card from Mike Mohill.
Evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Water conservation. We're all in it, aren't we? So let me see. Glendale has a drought fee. That's not a fixed fee. It's a percentage fee, so that the more water you use, the more you get dinged. So if you are a homeowner that have a house and have more than a little plot, you pay more. Then we have a thing called the tier rates. The more water you use, the more you pay also. In the meantime, we approve thousands of new apartments in downtown Glendale. And of course, those people won't use any water, will they? They won't flush the toilets. They won't wash their hands. They won't go to the restroom. They won't take a shower. They'll do nothing. They won't use any water, will they? Why don't we have a moratorium on construction in this city till this drought situation is over? We can do a moratorium. It's legal. And you know it. But is that because the building industry wants to keep building more and more? We can have another apartment. We can have another hotel. Let's put in more hotels. Of course, hotels don't use any water, do they? Where is this? Again, why does Glendale have both a drought fee and a tier fee? What other city that I know of in the county has both? Why don't you ask Mr. Ochoa?
I will.
That's a good question, isn't it? Are we the only one? Okay. The inn is full in the city of Glendale. We have plenty of people. You know, the state of California has millions of people. They don't have to come to Glendale, do they? Why don't you put a sign out? This inn is full. We don't need any more, because you know what? When you have more people come into the city, you make me pay more water. I can't use my bathrooms facility. I have to cut down on my shower usage, all to accommodate the new residents. And the new resident downtown, most of them will be renters, won't they? They're not going to be homeowners. They're not going to have a stake in the city. They're here today and gone in a year or two. But the homeowners are here year after year, and we're paying the brunt for your mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian?
I do want to ask our city manager, are we the only city in the state that has a tiered system and a drought fee?
As a matter of fact, the tier rates, while still argumentative in a number of municipalities with their own water system and water providers, many times are moving towards tier rates because they're fairer than just charging a one-size-fits-all to everybody, regardless of the usage. In terms of a drought rate, if you have that water utility, in order to comply with the state requirements, you are charging that drought rate. What you are doing is not increasing that drought rate any more than what it is right now. To correct, I think, what I heard Mr. Mohill say is that this somehow is used as demand pricing. It is not demand pricing. Under the law, we cannot do that. What the drought fee is there to protect is the revenue stream that goes into the water utility, because whether you use 1 drop or 1 billion drops of water, the valves, the reservoirs, the infrastructure of the utility has to be maintained. It's unfortunate that after attending so many meetings, he doesn't quite get it. But the point being that this is actually good news. You're not extending that drought rate, and we are not unique in that respect in terms of having tiers and drought rates.
Okay, and since I've voted on a few projects that have come up in Glendale, I just want to ask you, I don't know, it's maybe a sort of a theoretical question, but will not building in Glendale result in people not coming to Southern California, or will it result in the drought not affecting Southern California anymore?
No, sir. That's a great question, because with the mass migration into California, whether they come to Glendale or they go to Los Angeles, the point is that they're coming to this region. The drought impacts the entire state, let alone the entire region. So, and considering where most of our water is coming from through MWD, Mr. Mohill's concerns really have no basis in terms of reality. They may feel good to say, but they don't actually, in fact, impact how reality works.
Thank you.
Mr. Garpetian?
And what are our rates compared to our neighboring cities? Where are we compared to Burbank, Pasadena, LA, Santa Clarita? You know, we often compare ourselves to other cities. Where do we stand?
At the time of our rate plan, we were well below. Steve, do you know where we are now?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we're about on the water side, probably in the middle towards the lower end, and that remains. I think you're going to see us drop again, because while certain agencies, just to expand on a question, while certain agencies haven't had the foresight that you did to put a drought rate in place, they've had to make that revenue up. So as you've seen widely publicized, the city of Los Angeles has had some extensive water rate increases. The city of Pasadena has raised their rates. My understanding is Burbank will be close behind. Those are just the 3 that touch us, not to mention the multitude. Right. But our rates are very comparable in the market that we look at, which is Burbank, Pasadena, and LA primarily. So we're at the lower end in that regard.
Okay, so when we come back in summertime and bring a new report and update, please bring that rate comparison so public would know where we are compared to our neighboring cities.
Easy. Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is a resolution delaying the imposition of a Phase 3 water conservation drought rate.
I introduce it, move the item.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
I have no other cards. Let's take a roll call.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman? Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Are we ready to go back to 8A? No, not yet. Okay.
We are? Yeah, we are ready. Yes.
We are. Let's go to
Mr. Mayor
8A.
and Council, item 8A is City Manager regarding Commission on Status of Women's Report on the Status of Women and Girls. 8A1 is a motion to review and approve the 2015-16 City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women Report on the Status of Women and Girls.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, sir. I'll turn it over to our program supervisor, Christine Powers, who is going to introduce a very informative report that was done as part of the strategic plan for CSW, and I think you'll find the results both informative and uplifting.
Good evening, Mayor Najari and members of Council staff. My name is Christine Powers. Last year, Council approved the 2015-18 strategic plan of the Commission on the Status of Women, and one of the goals in this plan was for the Commission to produce a report on the status of women and girls. The Commission had done such a report about 10 years ago, so it was about time for them to do such a report again. And the Commission chose to partner with Mount St. Mary's University to produce this report. Mount St. Mary's University is the only women's university in Los Angeles, and they are known nationally for their research on gender equality. And for the past 4 years, they have been producing a report on the status of women and girls in the state of California. So working with direction from the Commission, the Mount St. Mary's was able to extract data specific to Glendale to produce a report that fits our community. The Commission is here before you today to request your approval of this report, which not only acknowledges the great strides women have made in this city, but also calls to mind the work that still needs to be done so that all members of society have equal access to opportunities and resources. Once this report is approved, the Commission intends to share the information with local community organizations and hopes that the information in this report can help them better understand where gender gaps exist and how they can better serve our community so that Glendale is a better place to live for everyone. With that, I would like to introduce Dr. Eleanor Siebert, Professor Emerita at Mount St. Mary's. She was the lead researcher on this report, and I will ask her to come forward and present the findings to you. Thank you.
Well, council members, thank you very much for having us here tonight to share with you some of the highlights of this report on the status of women in Glendale. And thank you for bearing with me as I fought my way through traffic to get here. As Christina said, Glendale's Commission on the Status of Women partnered with Mount St. Mary's to look at 8 topic areas relative to women. And these are the 8 areas of focus. We looked at the demographics of the women, female population here in Glendale, their educational status, employment and earnings, veterans, poverty, health, safety, and leadership. And the data in the full report provide a snapshot of the women of your city. And these data are taken from several sources and are fully cited in the full report. Tonight, what we're going to do is to show a couple of highlights in each of these topic areas, and I hope that you will have the opportunity and the interest in reading the report in its entirety. With respect to demographics, Glendale is a bit unique in the county of Los Angeles. In the county of Los Angeles, you will see that the Latina population, that's among the women, is 48%, and the white population is 26%. But here in Glendale, the majority population is white, and they're 18% Latina, and the other ethnic distributions are up there, as you can see. And although the majority population in Glendale is white...
Interrupt you. The white category includes different ethnic groups, right? I just want to make sure that we understand that nuance.
Yes, and that's exactly what my sentence was. Although this majority population includes many distinctive cultural ethnicities within it. And one of the most significant here in Glendale is the Armenian population. And the U.S. Census shows that cumulative figures over a 5-year period from 2009 to 2013, that 37% of Glendale's population is Armenian, and that is a number that has grown from 28% in the year 2000. Also, in contrast to the county, Glendale's women tend to be older. The median age of women in Glendale is 43 and a half years, while countywide women have a median age of 36.9 years. But similar to the county, Glendale's older populations are increasingly female. Overall, the population is 54% women and girls. But when you get to ages 65 years and up, 59% are women, and above 85 years, 61% are women. And this increasing majority of senior women in the city has implications, as you might imagine, for the programs and services designed for the elderly. Moving into education, Glendale has a good story to tell. The Glendale Unified School District has about 12,500 girls enrolled, and the demographics there reflect the female demographics as a whole. Over half of Glendale's girls enrolled in K through 12 public schools are white, 24% Latina. And this is in stark contrast to LA County and the Los Angeles Unified School District, which, of course, is 25 times larger than Glendale Unified School District. But 3 out of 4 girls in the LAUSD are Latina, 10% are white. But a real point of pride that you have here is your high school graduation rates. That's 92% of students graduate from Glendale Unified School District in a timely fashion, compared to 70% for the LA Unified School District and 81% statewide. You can see from this bar graph that in Glendale, as across the county and the state, girls graduate from high school at a higher rate than boys. And in Glendale, that takes this number, 94% of girls graduate in a timely fashion, 90% of boys. And in general, Glendale women across all ages are better educated than women countywide. Here you have a comparative graph of the educational attainment of women who are 25 years and older. 65% of Glendale's women have some college experience, with 39%, that's the top 2 bars, having a minimum of a bachelor's degree. 13% of Glendale's women have a graduate or a professional degree, 26% a baccalaureate degree. On the other end of the scale, 35% of Glendale's women and 44% of LA County women have a high school education or less. The report actually breaks this bar apart, and you can see that in Glendale, 15% of women have less than a high school education. So not unrelated to this higher educational attainment is the fact that Glendale women tend to earn more money than women across the county. So moving into earnings and employment, you can see that in Glendale, the median salary for full-time year-round workers, women, is $45,300. That's compared to $40,200 for women across the county and $42,700 for those across the state. In each of those levels, Glendale women earn more than in the county and the state, but notice in the county and in California, women earn less than men. But in Glendale, that gap is reversed. In Glendale, women who work full-time year-round earn about 105% of what their male counterparts earn. Those are based on median earnings. And the highest occupations, the highest paid occupations for Glendale women are listed here. There are occupations in computer and math, in arts, entertainment, sports, media, in health diagnosing and treating, in management, in business and financial, and in legal occupations. So those are the 5 occupational clusters that have the highest salaries. And what you can see here is that In the majority of the cluster's workforce in health diagnosing and treating, then this includes registered nurses, is 72% women. And business and financial occupations also have a majority of women. So where do most people work? Because you can see that there's a lot of room. 1 in 4 of those involved in computer and mathematical occupations is a woman, and about 1 in 3 is in the management occupations. So these are the occupations that are predominantly held by Glendale women: personal care and service, education, training, and library occupations, again, healthcare, diagnosing and treating, and office and administrative support. And the thing I think you might want to note here is that personal care and service workers, a workforce that is 88% female, earn near minimum wage. And the office and administrative support personnel are not far behind. Moving to Glendale's veterans, first off, I should say that nationwide, about 9% of the population is comprised of veterans. Here in Glendale, 3% of the population has served in the military. This is about 4,400 veterans. And so that's that tiny red sliver there. And the blue is all the non-veteran population. And about 1/100th of that red sliver is the women veterans. So there are 49 women veterans here, according to the last census. But if we if we look at that little red sliver as a whole, remembering that it's 99% men, in general, these veterans are better educated, have a higher rate of employment, a higher median income, and a lower rate of poverty than the non-veteran population. Which takes us to poverty. And poverty in this report is defined by the federal poverty level. That's based not on where you live, what part of the country you live in, but on your family size and a little bit on the age of the householder. For a family of 4 with 2 children under 18, the federal poverty level is just above $24,000. So if a family's annual income falls below that, they are said to live in poverty. Poverty rates in Glendale are lower than those in the county and those in California. In all cases, you can see here that the red bar, which is women, is higher than the green bar, which is men. So there is a greater percentage of women living in poverty than men. That's in Glendale, the county, and the state. If you look at some targeted groups in Glendale, looking at the poverty of women by age, all women across all ages, 17% live in poverty. But for women who are 75 years and older, 20% live in poverty. Whenever children are involved, poverty is a bigger issue. For married couple households, 20% of those live in poverty. And for those households headed by single mothers, 29% live in poverty.
I'm sorry, one quick question before you move on.
Yes.
You said the poverty rate was $24,000, but in Glendale is lower. What is that number?
No, sorry, the poverty threshold, the threshold that you use as the bar to measure when somebody lives in poverty. So for a family of 4 with 2 children under 18, that bar is just over $24,000. So if a family has less than $24,000 a year on income, then they live in poverty.
Got it. Thank you.
Health, another good story. And in health, Glendale's women have a good life expectancy. It's higher than women in the county, as you can see, and higher than Glendale's men. At birth, Glendale women have a life expectancy of 84.5 years, and for women who reach the age of 65, they can expect to live to 87.4 years. The leading causes of death in Glendale are similar to those across the county, the state, in fact, the nation. It's heart disease and cancers. 1 out of every 3 women will die from a heart disease. 1 out of every 4 women who die will be from cancer. I've put comparative statistics for men and women up here to just point out that a woman is more likely to die from a stroke than a man. And what is just emerging now is the impact that complications of Alzheimer's disease is having on women's deaths. Women are twice as likely to die from Alzheimer's as men.
Is that unique to Glendale, or is that?
Yes, Glendale, yes. Safety. Another good story. I really did enjoy getting to know you. Glendale's a pretty safe city. So if you compare Glendale, the city of Glendale, to the city of Los Angeles, you'll see that a Los Angeles resident is 5 times more likely to be a victim of violent crime than a Glendale resident. The majority of violent crimes, as you can see, are aggravated assault. That's 59% of the violent crimes reported in this year. And robbery is the next most common crime. You can see that rape comprises about 5% of violent crimes. That's Glendale's numbers. Domestic violence and rape or sexual violence are 2 crimes that disproportionately impact women. And the domestic violence is generally a category of aggravated or simple assault. And nationally, now this is a national number, 85% of domestic violence victims are women. This shows the calls for assistance in Glendale over the last several years for assistance in domestic violence cases. These are tracked separately by your police department, and they are reported via the FBI's uniform reporting system. There's a slight decrease in from 2006 to 2014. There was a spike in 2010. I don't know what happened there, but it really is a spike because I've checked the points on either side of it, and they are in line with the overall downward trend. In terms of rapes, as I said, account for about 5% of all Glendale crimes. That's an average of about 12 a year. That's over the past 5 years from 2010 to 2015. The peak was at 17 cases in 2010 and a low point in 2012 at 6 cases. With such small numbers, you can't get much of a trend.
Can I interrupt? I have a question about the domestic violence, if I may. I'm here.
I'm sorry. I seem to be coming from, yes.
In the last report that we did 10 years ago, the phone calls, the percentage that you reported on the police reports, we also had in the report how many were received at the YWCA. And in that report, there were 3 times as many reported to the YW as were reported to the police department. I'm just wondering if you did any of that kind of comparison in this study.
I did not check with the YWCA. That was a resource for veterans, but they didn't get back to us, so we didn't pursue it because there were so few veterans. But here, I don't know about that.
Okay, because that was kind of alarming back then, the fact that there were like this many at the police department, and then the YW had 3 times as many there.
Okay. It's a good point.
Okay.
I'm going to end tonight with leadership, which is another very high point for Glendale. Women have been woefully absent from higher levels of decision-making in large publicly held companies. That's particularly true across the nation and the state. As examples, women account for just over 10% of the 5 highest paid executives among California's 400 largest public companies. 4% of those companies have a female CEO or president. Here in Glendale, you have 5 of California's 400 companies that are headquartered. 2 of the 5 have a female CEO or a president. and every one of them outpaces the state in having women represented among the highest paid executives and serving as board members. I'll just point out that we don't have a slide, but the report also looks at privately held businesses. There are just under 29,000 privately held businesses in Glendale. 43% of those are either owned or equally co-owned by women. And I think that speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit and creativity of your women. And the last slide here is about women in the political arena. As you know, women have been underrepresented in politics at many levels. Here in Glendale, you do have 2 of your 3 elected officials which represent Glendale in the state and the county policymaking bodies are women. I have that women comprise 40% of the elected council city seats. That's compared to a 28% statewide average. Nearly 1/3 of Glendale's boards and commissions are women. Those are appointed positions, of course, as you know. And finally, 80% of the Board of Education here in Glendale are women, and that's in addition to a student board member. Across California, that number is 47%. And this is the elected body at all levels of government that has the greatest gender parity. Well, that's the end of our slides. I've enjoyed getting to know Glendale and its women. And you have a diverse and an educated workforce, and that includes the political and public service workforce that utilizes both the talents of men and women. And this city is well positioned to lead in neutralizing some of the persistent gender gaps in the region. So I want to thank you for your time and for your work in both addressing and creating policy that make lives of women and their families and all citizens better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very informative. And how often is this overview done, Christine? Can we ask you? Is this a
10 years.
Biannual event or?
Mayor Najarian, members of the council, 10 years ago this report was done. There was a 2004-2006 report done, and that gives enough time for us to look back and compare to how far women have come. We can certainly do it on a biannual basis or every 5 years, too.
Isn't it, I think it's meant to coincide with the census, isn't it?
Yeah, there's that. A lot of the information does come from the census, so it does make sense to do this. I mean, there's the American surveys that they do every year, the estimates, but 10 years is a good round number.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any cards from the public on this item. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Sure. I'll speak. Yeah.
Comment?
I meant from the public,
from the public.
you're always invited to speak.
Okay.
I'd
rather listen to
I don't,
public.
but I don't
you said
have any
no
cards.
So.
No, but I do not have cards. So let's.
So we have a lady who wants to speak.
The study's going to be available for us. Well, and that was I have a comment.
Okay, so the question from the audience was if the study is going to be available to the public, and this should be on our website, should it not?
Make it available?
Yes, Mayor Najarian, members of the council, once this report is approved, it will be online. We plan to issue it in the upcoming City Connections newsletter, electronic newsletter that's due out at the beginning of April. But as of tomorrow, it should be up on our website, glendaleca.gov/women. That's the Commission's website, and we'll make sure we highlight it on the main page as well.
Okay, Ms. Devine?
Yes, I have a couple comments. First of all, I think it was a great snapshot, and I thank the Commission for putting this forward to the public. It's a great report. Our women are doing great, and I think it all starts with that family, the education, and on from there. I would like to make a suggestion, and it goes to the lady's point about getting this information out into the community. And I would like to see the commission, if they could, take this report. And since you have, 3 months between meetings, that perhaps you could go out to different organizations and present this report, for instance, to the GUSD, because I think they need to know what kind of job they're doing. I think to take an ex officio who is a high school student, take her with you, and let everyone see exactly what the commission is doing. I think it's good for the CSW, and it would be good for our community. I think going to GCC and to the women's history classes and reporting this. They may not go to our website. They may not see this. And I think that would be a great exposure for this report. There are so many. There's the Association of University Women in the city that would probably love to hear this report and may not have the wherewithal to look it up or to have someone come in. But I think like a speakers bureau, and just maybe once a month go to a different organization, because I think there is so much valuable information in this report. I think mothers should hear it. I think grandmothers should hear it. I think women in our community should hear it. That we are doing a good job. We're not done. This isn't the best we can do. Things can get better, but I think it's a valuable source of information that should really be taken to our community and made known. Thank you.
So, Mayor, thank you. But let me go to Mr. Sinarian because he first. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, a couple of things. First of all, I think we have a lot of reason to be very proud of Glendale based on this report, because it appears that in Glendale the gender gap is narrower than it is in the rest of the country, and certainly in our neighboring cities. The level of education, graduation rates and education level is more commensurate to the compensation that women get. More of them graduate, more of them get education, and apparently they're making more money in Glendale, as it should be. Because when you have it the other way around, where women are graduating at a higher rate and they're getting more education than men are, but when you look at the numbers and it looks like men are making more money, there's a problem. And that problem persists in our country despite all the progress we've made in a major way. There's a huge gender gap. Let's not kid ourselves. And women out there in the real world, especially the higher they get in their professional careers, the closer they get to the glass ceiling that exists there. So, while I want to sort of pat ourselves on the back, we don't exist in a vacuum. We're not an island in of ourselves. We live in a great nation, and what happens in the rest of the nation impacts us in our women, our beloved women. So, last point that I'll make is that the crime statistic is also very encouraging, because especially in the last 3 months we've been hearing about this crime wave that's impacting our city, and it seems like it's so personal because it's happening to our neighbors, to our neighborhoods, and our residents are impacted, and you're wondering what's going on. But then you look at the totality of what's happening in all of California. It's happening everywhere, and that crime wave is impacting everyone, more so than it is impacting Glendale residents, because our city still remains a relatively safe city. And while we can do better, the fact that a woman is 5 times, that's 400% less likely to be impacted by crime in Glendale than she is in Los Angeles. I mean, just dwell on that for a second. That's huge. That's huge, and we should be very proud as a community, as a people that are apparently law-abiding, and as a community that has a very good police department that's apparently able to deal with crime on a timely and effective manner, and we should strive for better. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you for the great report. Very useful.
Thank you. Mr. Carpaccio.
So, Mayor, before I make my comments, I see a few of the commissioners of the status of women here. They work very hard to obtain this report. I don't know if you would be kind enough to let them, if they would like to make a few comments, or they want to stand and be recognized, or what have you, whatever makes you feel comfortable. But I think they've done a great job. And between my wife, my 3 daughters, my 2 sisters, and my mother, I can't be more happier than with this report. I mean, I'm so proud of what you've done, and I'm so glad that Glendale, the women in Glendale, are doing much better than the rest of the our neighboring cities and the county and the state as far as the education goes. And the life expectancy. I mean, 85 plus, 60%, 40%. I mean, it's because they have a good life. They have a better life in Glendale. That's why they live longer. They live healthier. No, it's true. It's true. And I'm so proud of this report. I'm so proud of the work that you have done. And I'm really pleased with the outcome of this report. As far as my colleagues indicated, the education level, the income level, the health level, and everything else, and also elected officials. You know, my wife is an elected official. She's on GUSD, and I'm proud of that. And she got elected before I did. So there you go. That shows that the women in Glendale they advance, and they will advance more. We can do a lot better. All right.
Okay. We're smarter, and we're smarter. We're better educated, and we're.
Can I? Councilmember Devine actually told a very funny joke at lunch today. Can I? About women.
I did.
What stands behind a successful woman?
Oh, right.
Her.
Yes.
So you know the saying, every successful man, there's a woman behind her, standing behind her. Well, there's the flip of that, which sounds like this: behind every successful woman, there is a woman. So
it's herself. It's herself.
So, yeah, it's her or herself.
Well, wow. That's not what the report says.
All right.
But
good enough.
But
Close enough.
I just want to close my remarks to Mr. Mayor and say thank you again for the great work that you've done, and I think we are all on the council. We're pleased with the outcome of this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to our Commission on the Status of Women and all the hard work that they do, and the professor from Mount St. Mary's University.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask one more question?
Yes.
Are you the only one left that was on City Council when the commission was approved? Back 10, 12 years ago, I think you're...
It was before me.
But I think I want to thank you for approving the Commission on the Status of Women back then, of having the progressive thinking and the...
Well, I can't take credit for...
Did you vote no?
For implementing it. However, I can take credit for some efforts to scuttle the commission, I have to tell you.
I do remember those too, but we got over that.
I fought for women's rights.
Yes, I know.
All right, well, thank you. Let's, Ms. Devine, would you be... there's no one more appropriate than you to make the motion.
As a former commissioner, I so move this item.
Second.
Let's take roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman? Garpetian?
Yes.
Ananian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes, thank you. Let's pick up where we left off, Mr. Kasakian.
Mayor and Council, at 8E is the Community Development Department regarding exclusive negotiating agreement with the Armenian American Museum and Cultural Center of California. E1 is a City Council motion authorizing City Manager to enter an exclusive negotiating agreement with the Armenian American Museum and Cultural Center of California's designated negotiating body, the Museum Committee, for the potential ground lease of city-owned property located at 201 East Colorado Street and commonly referred to as, quote, Central Park, and dissolve the exclusive negotiating agreement between the city and the Armenian Genocide Centennial Committee, Western U.S., dated April 2nd, 2015, for the potential ground lease of city-owned property identified as APNs 565-004-905 and 565-004-907, commonly referred to as Parking Lot 31.
Mr. Ochoa.
Last month, This topic came up as an update on the ENA, as was read by the city clerk, an exclusive negotiating agreement that currently resides at the property commonly known as Lot 31, the corner of Verdugo and Mountain Avenue. The council, in hearing what the update was, how the ENA was progressing, offered opinions and suggestions that perhaps the best location for the museum would be in the Arts and Entertainment District in the downtown, really anchoring that southern end of the district at Central Park. The idea being that we have green space there, the creation of the museum and the amenities that surround the museum, the original vision really for that Central Park with the Central Paseo and the location of all of our sister city statues and donations from around the world could possibly be the best home. And if we were to do that, the city would be in a position perhaps to knock out two birds with one stone, and that we need additional parking. We have funds for such parking with the end of redevelopment, that perhaps we could build the subterranean parking garage to the south of the soon-to-be renovated Central Library that now will feature a north-south entrance there that focuses on Maryland as opposed to the east side of the building. And in that park, it really becomes a public space. Still open space, not necessarily green, but an open public space by way of this paseo. The commission, or rather the museum committee, accepted the suggestions of council and went back to their board and had a number of discussions, primarily because this committee is very unique in that it in itself is comprised of many different committees, community groups, and a wide assortment of interests, such that we probably have never seen, at least in quite some time, in Glendale. To that end, and knowing that time is of the essence, as they began in earnest the initial study and that's called for in the ENA for environmental quality compliance at the Lot 31 location, in a very impressive clip, they met, they talked, began negotiating what would be the parameters for the ENA that we are asking for your blessing on tonight. The committee met with our CDD director, Mr. Lanzafame, with the deputy director for economic development, Ms. Sanchez, and at this point, what we are asking, and we feel very comfortable and asking you for your continued leadership in facilitating this project in Central Park. What the motion before you is would allow me as city manager to finalize the terms of the ENA and sign that ENA, which would be for a 365-day term, could be extended if need be. The reason why we would need this extended amount of time for the city to continue negotiating some of these terms, very complex terms, is because the project would grow in complexity manifold by moving into Central Park, particularly because it would be sitting atop a public parking structure. So the idea of how that structure is designed, who builds that structure? Is it a design-build project? Would the committee build that and give it back to the city? Would we all relocate our interests in construction to a third party in a public-private partnership? All those very unique details to this particular concept would have to be worked out. Thus, the motion before you is to grant me that opportunity to do those negotiations, but in doing so, demonstrate the good faith of all parties by relinquishing the interests in the Lot 31 site in favor of the downtown Central Park site. I have to stress that the committee was adamant that if we were going to ask them to consider that Central Park side, that they wouldn't be left in space after a period of a year or 18 months or even 2 years, because, again, this is a very complex project. And at the same time, I think the community in the Royal Canyon, Ross Moyne, Verdugo, Woodlands areas also wants some finality to this discussion. Make no mistake, the terms of the ENA, as you see laid out in your staff report, still revolve around the due diligence, the public outreach, which now the city would be a part of because it becomes this public-private type of concept, as well as the environmental documentation and study, all still remain in this new ENA. But again, I have to confess that the idea of looking at Central Park as truly a central gathering spot for the entire community with the ARC, the newly refurbished $14 million project that is the Central Library rehabilitation, the museum, and what could be the relocation of green space in that park to where there is a current parking lot in front of the library's current entrance on the east side of that building, invite us to really have our cake and eat it too in some ways, in many ways, to be able to have green space there where there is a parking lot surrounded by amenities like a playground at that location, still have the open space vis-a-vis the very large paseo that would be extended from Brand through the park, and have the library and the museum front on that paseo with the ARC just off to the side slightly. Allows us that opportunity to create a vision that I think everyone in this community, north, south, east, and west, would look at and be proud of as the demonstration, perhaps the best demonstration of Glendale coming together. So again, what we are asking for tonight is your direction for me to finish off the negotiations on these very unique specific technical details about how the parking garage works interplayed with the paseo and the museum, and then we would move forward with the execution of that ENA forthwith, all while moving away from the Lot 31 ENA. With that, I would invite you to ask any specific question you may have of Mr. Lanzafame or Ms. Sanchez, and certainly there are members of the committee leadership who are here who can entertain any question that you might have.
Okay, does council have any questions at this point?
I'd like to hear the public first.
Yes, you will reserve your rights to make comments. Let me go to the public then. First is Stephanie Schuss. Stephanie will be followed by Alice Headley.
Mr. Mayor?
3 minutes. We have about 10 speakers.
Oops. Good evening, Mayor Najarian, members of the council, city staff. I am Stephanie Schuss and have lived in Glendale since 2001, when my husband and I moved into what is now the historic district of Lower Royal Boulevard. From the point of view of this neighborhood, the controversy about the museum was always about the location and not about the museum itself. Many residents of the Royal Canyon and Greenbrier Neighborhood Association promised the museum committee that they would have our support if they found a downtown location. With the help of the city staff, they have found such a location, specifically, as you said, Central Park, and we are very happy to support their choice. It seems like this location is a winning site for the museum, the city, Glendale's economy. With so many retail shops, restaurants, coffee and snack shops, even wine bars nearby on Brand Boulevard and in the Americana. Plus, it is within walking distance of our main library and active senior center and the existing Museum of Neon Art, which provides opportunities for special events and joint promotions. I realize few things in life are perfect, and easy access to sufficient parking always seems to be a challenge these days. But this location does have good access to public transportation, several public parking lots, as well as those at the Americana and the Galleria. Here's a thought. Perhaps the city can negotiate specific hours of use of the often empty nearby parking lots on the Armory and Elks Club properties. That said, I'd like to thank the museum committee, the city staff, and members of the city council for all the time and effort they have expended to find and agree on this new direction. All in all, this location appears to be the best location to produce a significant win-win-win result. A win for the museum, a win for the city, a win for Glendale businesses. And I hope tonight we'll be able to start moving forward to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Headley, followed by Mark Linnett.
Mayor Najarian, council members and staff, I just want to thank you for supporting, or hopefully you will support this. I think this is where it really needs to be. It's going to support the other businesses that are downtown. It'll make it a place to go to. And I can hardly wait to go there myself to see everything that they have to show, plus everything that is going to be coming to the museum in the revolving art exhibits that they will be having. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Linnett, I believe. And then after Mark, Cheryl Fries Vega.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council and staff, my family and I are 25-year residents of Royal Canyon, and I'm pleased to be here this evening to support the proposal locating the Armenian Genocide Museum in Central Park. I believe that this location in the Arts District will benefit the entire community, be good for local businesses, and rehabilitate a little-used public space. And I congratulate both you and the committee for considering this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Fries Vega.
Mayor Najarian, City Council, and the City Manager's Office. My name is Cheryl Fries Vega, and I am the President of the RCPOA, the Royal Canyon Homeowner Property Association. I want to thank you on behalf of the Royal Canyon neighbors and the neighbors that have come to you seeking an alternate downtown location. And you listened. You found a location in downtown in the Arts and Entertainment District, and I cannot think of a better location for a museum in Glendale than the Arts and Entertainment District. I would also like to thank the Museum Committee, most especially Berj Karapashian and Zavin Kazazian, for they have said in every meeting that I have attended that if the corner of Verdugo and Mountain was not the correct location for the museum, that they would not be building the museum on that corner. So we thank them for considering the Central Park location in the Arts and Entertainment District. And we want them to know that Royal Canyon supports the museum in the Central Park location. And I would like to thank everybody for their work in making this happen, which is a win for the museum and the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Darrell Ford is next, followed by Mike Mohill.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. As a resident of Central Glendale, seeing this item on the agenda was very disappointing. There's not a lot of park and open space in Central and Southern Glendale, not a lot at all. This park, this small little open space, is essentially where I go, where I can walk to, where I can sit in the grass and sit in the trees and enjoy being outside. There's not much to it. There's not much there. It would be great if there's a lot more. But to see that this limited open space in Central Glendale is potentially going to be taken away, transformed into something else, that's very disappointing. The city has historically underinvested in parks in Central and Southern Glendale, historically, recognized as the most park impacted portion of the city. This proposal to take more open space, potentially take more open space from this area, is very, very concerning. Now, obviously, there could be a win-win here. There could be a scenario where the museum is built and there's been no net loss of open green space. That's something I'd like the city to pursue if they're going to move forward with this ENA, specifically no net loss in open green space in Central Glendale. That would be a win-win. Second, it seems from the comments from the city manager that there's a broader scheme here for Central Glendale and this park and this museum, including a potential parking structure, a relocation of potentially some park amenities in front of the museum. That all sounds wonderful. But it begs the question, is an ENA, an exclusive negotiating agreement with this organization, the proper way to go about such a complicated project? Do they have experience constructing a garage? They have experience working in a complicated funding scenario where state, local, maybe even federal funds are involved along with donated funds. This sounds like a very interesting, potentially very exciting, but also very complicated project. Why not take it out to RFP? If really the intent is to do a massive redevelopment of this central portion, potentially saving the open space for the residents, building a new museum, a garage, and really reinvigorating the southern portion of town, why not take it out to RFP? And that's nothing against the museum. I think it's a wonderful idea, regardless of where you put it. It does belong downtown. Downtown is where the museum should be. But is this the location? Is this the agreement? And is this the time to move forward with it? I ask the council again, really, because there's so limited space and land costs so much in central Glendale, is this the right move forward at this time? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Mohill. Mike will be followed by Albert Hoffman.
Evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. About 1973, I think it was, about when Mr. Ochoa was born, the Glendale Fathers put a library at the Central Library. Because why? Because they didn't have to go out and buy land. They already owned the land. So they put in a brand new library, which used to be a green space. Then they put in the adult recreation area. Then they remodeled, recently spent millions of dollars to put a green space next to the adult recreation area. And today you're talking about putting another building in downtown Los Angeles. Where are the 4,000 new residents in downtown Glendale going to go for the park? You just heard a man who lives in South Glendale here recently say, hey, this is the only green space I know about where I live. You expect him maybe in 1,000 years from now go up to the 134 freeway? But that's a pie in the sky plan with that park. Central Park should stay as a Central Park, not another building. We have plenty of buildings in this city. It's the last remaining green space in the area. We don't need another building. Think about it, folks. If you lived in South Glendale, if you lived in downtown Glendale, and you had children, where would you take your kids? You can't walk across now you can walk across the Brand. In fact, I was over there at that park about 2 weeks ago with the missus, and they're planning to put an ice rink there for the Christmas holidays. Guess what? We won't have that now. It's the last remaining green space. Now, the people who want the museum relocated, God bless them. But remember one thing, folks. When you have that museum relocated someplace else, the college still wants to have a parking structure there. That's going to be over 4-story high and over 3,000 people using that parking structure every day going through your yard. So be careful what you wish for, people who live in the Royal Canyon area, because you may have one day have a parking structure with thousands of new kids going through your streets. Think twice, because City Council needs the money to pay the pensions, and the college wants to have a larger footprint in your neighborhood. Mr. Ochoa went ahead and said, oh no, not for 10 years from now. Yeah, right. After I called him on it, misleading the public, didn't you, Mr. Ochoa? Modified the original report after I came before the council. You're going to have a parking structure and administrative building in your neighborhood. That may be the downside of this whole crisis. Thank you.
Mr. Mohill.
Though I am growing back my beard, I assure you I'm not twisting my mustache to impact the college's nefarious plans to increase parking. So just for the record.
Are you referring to like Snidely Whiplash character?
You see, if I'd been born in 73, I wouldn't know who that is. Like me.
Well, I'm not sure who it is, but I've heard the reruns. Albert Hoffman. Albert will be followed by Berj Karapetian.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and the staff, and the public, especially the public. I'm Albert Hoffman. I'm a native resident of Glendale, so I've seen a lot of things happen in this town. Some of them good, and a lot of them are bad. particularly what's happened to our downtown. It's a disgrace what's happening on Central, especially. I just can't believe it. First of all, I'd like to publicly apologize to Councilwoman Devine and Councilman Garpetian. When I saw the article in the news press about the Next on Lex front page article, I just went livid. My wife saw it, and I ran into my computer, and I immediately wrote off a message to the two council people who campaigned they were not going to approve any more downtown buildings. I failed to read a little paragraph where it said it was approved in the original Lex project 2 years prior by the previous council, which 3 of you were on. Now, I must say and laud Mayor Najarian. He's been fighting this downtown development for a long time, and he hasn't got any support. It's really tragic what has happened on Glendale. Last October, I met a lot of friends of mine. They came in for my high school reunion. They came down Central. They said, "What on earth is happening in Glendale?" I said, "The developers have taken over." I believe, and when I saw this article, the Next on Lex, I said, that area could be a park now. Yes, I know that people are complaining about Central Park, and that's what bothers me, because, yes, Central Park was already decimated, and yet it's the only green space left, as the person said. There should have been a lot of green spaces. There were opportunities. You just gave them away to the developers. You didn't consider the residents of Glendale. This is what's so frustrating. You constantly want to build, 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 build. Every inch is taken away. And there's no green space around these buildings you're putting in. It's awful. And I was on the downtown specific plan. One of the things we wanted was open space, green space. Where is it? It's not there. So all of you, you hear Mr. Mohill come here every week and complain about that. Well, it's true. You gave away our city to the developers. And you know what's time to do now? Is take the bull by the horn to start stopping these projects like that Next on Lex. Stop them from building it. You can do that. Yeah, it's going to take work, but do it. You have the opportunity to do it. Get out and work for the city. Work for the residents, not the developers. Thank you.
Is that a possibility?
On a related note, the bulldozers just today have chewed up all that green space that was at the corner of Central and Lexington. So I saw it first.
And can I wanted to ask Mr. Ochoa, is it possible for us to just go in and stop this building?
Not without a lawsuit that you would likely lose under the U.S. Constitution's taking articles. I would also submit to you that the projects that were being built, the downtown, were on private property. You didn't give anything away.
Thank you. Since I've been on, because an accusation was made, since I've been on council, not once have I voted on any project where we gave away green space to a private developer. That just has not happened. Glendale got built up a long time ago. From mid-'80s to mid-'90s, it was the Wild West in Glendale, where they built ugly, ugly apartment buildings all throughout central Glendale and downtown. That happened a long time ago. So to point fingers at me, who's been on council for 2.5, 3 years, and say that you gave away Glendale and because of you it's ruined, I'm sorry. Just not fair. Not fair. And that's the only reason. You know, Mr. Hoffman, I usually don't comment on these things, but just not fair.
Berge Karapetian. We got a little off track, but I think Berge will bring us back into
Let's
focus.
try. Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff, thank you for this opportunity. This experience that we had with the ENA over the past year has been a very learning experience and a very humbling experience because it has taught us that there is a great value in listening to the opinions and suggestions of other individuals. We have done our best to listen And we believe that the homeowners council of the Royal Canyon area and the adjoining areas, as well as the residents, have listened to us. And we have started being a part, but we've come together. And we hope that this process of coming together will continue, and the collaboration that we will see on this project in the Arts and Entertainment District will make Glendale a better place for all of us. So thank you for this opportunity. We thank the city manager for the cooperation that we have seen from him and his staff, Mr. Phil Lanzafame, the city attorney's office, and especially Darlene Sanchez. So thank you to everyone for the assistance and cooperation and guiding us through this process and cooperating and being patient with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carpetian. I don't have any other cards, so let's discuss it.
I go first, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Carpetian.
I have one question for the staff, and then I'll make some comments. Right now, there's an ENA on lot 31.
Correct, sir.
And by moving them from that parking lot to Central Park, we are issuing a new ENA. When they sign this ENA, would the other one be?
It would be dissolved.
It's dissolved?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to make sure that everybody knows where we stand. When you sign this ENA, the other one is dissolved. So we can't jump back and forth. And I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page on this one. As far as Central Park, I hear the gentleman who spoke as far as the open space, and I know that during the ENA and the negotiation, we can ask the committee to design this building the way that will save as much open space as possible, because they need an open space behind the building or in the front of the building that will be incorporated into the rest of the plan that the city has to even create a bigger space, incorporating the parts of the library and the alley, and having that synergy between the museum, the library, the Museum of Neon Arts. I include them as well as Americana. I think that's a must, that we need to design this building that way. As far as the park itself, it's a passive park. I don't know why it was designed that way. I think when we built the Adult Recreation Center, we didn't have any funds to master plan that area, and they just put the sod on it and the grass on it and said, let's keep it green until we have a master plan. And this could be that master plan. As far as creating more open space in South Glendale, I know it's all built out. It is all built out. We are having a tough time finding a new location to build a park. So that's why we joined the school district and had a joint meeting after over a decade, I believe. I want to thank my fellow council members to attending that meeting. So we are trying to work with our school district and turn their schoolyards into a parkland, basically, to build multifunctional sporting fields. So soccer field or any kinds of field or a football field or what have you. So I think we have two programs, two schools that we are testing right now. It will be Wilson School, Middle School, as well as Columbus, which is both are in southern portion, especially Columbus one. If we can make that happen, and I hope it will happen soon, that will create a better place for the kids to play as well. I have 3 children. It's important for the kids when they come out of their house, they can walk to a park, and that's what we're lacking in South Glendale. So we are working towards creating more open space, and that is working with the school district. So it's not that we're trying to take away this green space and do nothing about it. We are working. We've been working on it, and hopefully we'll get done soon. And I think this will be a great location for the museum, for the entire community to use. This is used for the entire community. It's not for the only Armenian Americans. It's for the entire community. This will be a landmark. It will put Glendale on the map. It will bring more tourists, more visitors to the area, and I'm sure it will do really well. And for the Royal Canyon Homeowners Associations, we are expecting a first fundraising from you. We are expecting the first fundraising from you, so we can get this ball rolling. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Devine.
I'll be brief. First, I want to thank Berge and his committee and everyone connected with the project being on at the other location. You were always gentlemen. You answered all of the questions that were put to you through thick and thin. And I commend you for your patience with not only us but also with residents. I feel that this is a great location for everybody. I agree with all the speakers that it can be still a central park. And I noticed that Mr. Alajajian is here, the architect. Now, as I understand it, you are going to redesign the museum for this space. And I agree totally with Mr. Garpetian that I would want you to maintain the essence of Central Park so that we can still use it as a gathering place, that we can still have, if we want, concerts there in the park or in the area, in the space that you have for the public. That if the Antaeus Theater wants to do a short play in the summer, they can have a place in your courtyard or in your garden where that can happen. Or if the Alex Theater would like to do a preview of something that's coming up, or there are so many ideas that you can, and events that you can run through your design, I think, to maintain the essence of a central park. And I think if we can do that together, I think everyone in the city will love this location. I also, let me see, the essence. And of course, the intention of having the location on Verdugo was for the education component. And I understand that a bit of that is lost in this location, but we still have the library right there. And the children that come to the library and from the schools can go to the museum. It is not a total loss. It will be fantastic. So I feel that this is a good place, a good location, and I'm on board with this suggestion, this ENA.
You, Mr. Singan?
Yeah, I'll make my comments short too. I just want to join in my colleagues' comments. I think they're very well thought out and are reflective of how I feel about this. I want to thank the Royal Canyon Homeowners Association's members and leadership for their principled position. To anyone who suggested or didn't suggest that their opposition was to the museum as opposed to the location, I think they've proven conclusively that it was the location that was problematic, and their support is reflective of that. Staff and the committee have worked very well together, and I think everyone has. This is a great example of good cooperation between multiple parties on a pretty complicated issue. Issues raised by Mr. Ford are not taken lightly. My colleague, Mr. Garpetian, already responded as to how the ways we're thinking of expanding our green space, especially in downtown and central Glendale. One thing that my colleague, Mr. Garpetian, said is that we're going to use the school fields to build fields but I think we're going beyond that. We're also looking at doing the most logical thing, which is opening the existing fields to the public. I mean, they're there, they're available, but for whatever reason, we've been very slow in cooperating with the school district to open this green space to be used by the public and then the residents that live in the neighborhood. I think it's a very efficient, relatively easy, cooperative way to create green space out of nowhere. And finally, which is the next thing on the agenda, I think, I know some are skeptical and they're calling it pie in the sky, but I don't think Cap 134 is a fantastic or unrealizable plan. You have to strive for it, right? You have to put your back into it. You have to try. It's not easy. I mean, LA, there's a couple areas in LA that want this. Now, I don't want to get too much into it before the agenda item, but people want it. We want it too. Just a matter of how badly do we want it. and how much political capital, energy, and resources are we willing to invest into implementing this project, which would bring a lot of green space to Glendale. And also, one last piece of this whole puzzle of how to develop central Glendale in a way where we have more open space is the pedestrian promenade, which I'm going to do everything to make happen. Is the block of Maryland, the 2 blocks of Maryland from Wilson down to the Central Library, closing it partially or I hope totally to traffic, and making a pedestrian promenade where people can come and walk and sit and have coffee and have a meal. And actually those businesses that are lingering and really suffering tremendously on Maryland can prosper and blossom, and we'll have we'll have depth to our downtown. It won't be just Americana. It'll be Americana, Maryland, our museums, our restaurants, our promenades. So I think the future is great, and I think this project, the museum, is going to be a large contributory factor in it.
Thank you. And I'll be brief too. I'm very happy that this item is before us. I'm very pleased in the way the process worked. I remember a Royal Canyon homeowners breakfast about 2 months ago, and it was a little frosty in that room. We were talking about the museum, and I assured everyone from both sides, the museum supporters and the homeowners, that the council will work through this, and the council together with staff and you and the museum folks will find the right place for this museum. And although we burned up the internet waves on the Nextdoor website, and the emails were flying fast and furious, I think we stuck to the process. We didn't get too emotional about it. Thank you to Leanne Reynolds and Cheryl and everyone from Royal Canyon, as well as Berge, Karpetian, and Zaven, and Tigrana, and everyone else that really tried to make this a win-win for the community. And the good thing is that we didn't break out into fistfights before we figured out a solution. Really, I think that's the story that should come out of this, is that we worked hard together as a community to find the best solution for this museum that will be a huge asset for the city. That makes me very happy. And again, I'd like to repeat and reiterate the support for Mr. Ford's comments about preserving as much open space as we can. The park as it is now, it's a nice green spot, but in the hot summer days, it's not so inviting. I'm hoping that in and around the Paseo, on the east side of the library, we can put some nice amenities, some tables, nice shade trees, water features, a walking path, some recreational items that would really make it much better than we have today. And if not exactly square foot per square foot match, it'll definitely be a better bang for the buck. And I solely have huge support. We're talking about the RFP. I wouldn't want to go the RFP route. I have full confidence in the Alajajian Marcusi architects, and they're also very responsive and sensitive, and they're here listening to what we're saying right now. So they don't have to get the transcript. They don't have to go back and watch the tape. They're hearing firsthand what all of our concerns are. So that's great news to me. Fundraising is another subject, and that will continue. The city's cooperation and continued collaboration with the museum folks on the design of that parking, who's going to build it, how much, where, what entrance, and all that are problems that can be solved much the same way we worked out this initial stumbling block. So I'm very happy that it's before us.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
I do want to make sure that during the negotiations we make sure the Korean Comfort Women Memorial finds a home on the ground still, because whatever resolution the Korean and the Japanese government may have found, it doesn't lessen the importance of that monument, and we put it there for a reason, and it should be there.
It's probably worth noting, and to Mr. Ford's concerns, because I think everybody would share those, is that the next time, presuming, and I have very strong confidence that we will execute the ZNA, the next time that this would come back formally for a decision would be for the repositioning from an ENA to a development agreement, because all of those questions have been hashed out. By that point, that location of the Korean Comfort Women Memorial, the disposition of what is today 2 parking lots. The parking lot that separates the park, the green space, from the library, and the parking lot on the east side of the building may very well just go away and all be centrally located in a parking structure. Thus, as the mayor indicated, you probably don't lose very much foot for foot open space area, but certainly even if there is a marginal decrease, it's much better space. So that absolutely comes into play. You will see, the community will see all of that before a shovel would ever go into the ground.
Okay, very
Don't
good.
forget Mayor's water future idea as well.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out. I'm not a designer, but I can envision something very inviting to everyone.
I really like that idea, Mr. Mayor.
With water in it. With water.
With water in it,
Which
that's
brings us
right.
to
With
another
water.
subject. When are our fountains going to get filled? But that's another discussion. So we have a motion at 8E1. Moved by Mr. Sinanian.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Karpetian.
Pipelines to the library.
Roll call, please.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman, Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian.
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Next item, please, Mr. Kasaki.
Next item is Director of Community Development regarding update on Space 134 Freeway Cap Park proposal continued from March 1st, 2016 City Council meeting. F1 is a motion to note and file Space 134 2016 Vision Plan Update. 2 is the authorized issuance of Space 134 Phase 3 Technical Feasibility Study RFP. And 3 is to authorize professional service agreement with Melendrez for on-call services related to the Space 134 project in the amount not to exceed $45,000.
If I could ask those leaving to keep the high fives down to a minimum, and or out the door. We'll give you a few minutes. Let's just take a pause while everyone exits. A mini recess, if you will.
It's just nice to see everybody leave happy, isn't it?
We'll see. We'll bring it up. And keep it down, Dan Bell. Okay. I think we heard the item read into the record. Let's wait just another moment. Mr. Sinanian. Okay. Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. This was a holdover from your previous meeting. There are 3 items. One was basically to receive and to note and file the Space 134 Vision Plan Update. You recall the rather detailed presentation by Mr. Loomis that you heard last time. We are asking that we issue the RFP for the technical studies on Space 134, which would be the next step. And then, as you heard in the clerk's report, we're asking for an appropriation of $45,000, not to exceed, not an appropriation, I'm sorry, a PSA for our ongoing partner, Melendrez, to an amount not to exceed $45,000 so that we can keep them on call as this process through the RFP is ongoing, so that we don't have to get a new consultant up to speed on everything that's been done by Melendres on this particular project. You had asked to hold this matter over until tonight, knowing that 3 of your colleagues, Mr. Mayor, were going to the P3 conference, and actually we're going to tour the park, as was noted by Councilman Sinanian. So with that, we really have nothing else unless you have specific questions. Mr. Loomis is here, as is Mr. Lanzafame.
Okay, I'm going to let you guys talk.
Okay.
I talked, so I'll let my colleagues.
Okay.
I promised
just very
Ms.
briefly.
Devine
Go ahead.
that I would call on her and she wouldn't have to jump up too high to get my attention.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just very, very briefly, because Councilmember Sinanian covered the trip fairly well, very well. But by traveling to Dallas, we were able to view the park, experience the park, see the benefits of the park, and also to learn about this P3 process of financing. What we learned about the park, it took them 8 years of true planning to get this park built. So it's not something that does happen overnight. The other things that we learned is that it is a connector. It is a connector for pedestrians, for transportation, and for the city, and that's exactly what we're proposing in Space 134. It reduces noise, it improves the air quality, and it increases stormwater runoff. So besides the obvious, it has some environmental benefits as well. The P3 process that we learned about is about public-private partnerships, which Councilmember Sinanian referred to, with state and federal funding diminishing. In order for cities to move forward with big projects like this, we have to come up with innovative thinking and new partnerships to maximize our potential. The city of Dallas uses this. Pittsburgh has used this for bridge work, for bridges. And the city of Long Beach is using the P3 process for their civic center. So as he said, it is a process that's used not only here in California, in our country, but also internationally. So I just felt that from the trip, we could apply all of this information that we learned to our Space 134 project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we attended a conference which happens to be in Dallas, which happened to have that park. So we killed two birds with one stone, I believe. The P3's public-private partnership is an important aspect of this equation, because that will bring many different investors to Glendale if we want to build this park. We have, as my colleague Mr. Sinanian indicated, we need to think big. We need to think outside the box. It's not an easy project, but Galleria wasn't an easy project. Americana wasn't an easy project. See how many years it took for us to even get the Americana built. So the park itself, it's very, very interesting because it connected their downtown to the old town in Dallas, and it would do same thing for Glendale. It would connect North Glendale to South Glendale, if you will. And it's the way they designed it. It was very interesting because they had the space for concert. They had a stage that you could host concerts. You could host outdoor events, play area for kids, water features, my favorite one, and they had restaurants around the park, which was very, very interesting. And they had this walking trail all over the place, which creates a very, very humbling experience, if you will. And the lighting at night, I had some of the pictures that we had on the screen. I took some of the pictures. The lighting at night was very relaxing. It was not intrusive. It would not affect the neighboring neighborhoods, if you will. That's all I have to say. I think public-private partnership is very important, and that conference was very educational. Many cities who used the P3, they were there and they told us how they used it, what are the benefits, what are the pros and cons, and how can we use it to to better the city, and that's what we're looking for. I think this is a project that will really help Glendale create more open space, 4.5, 5 acres of park. It may not happen tomorrow, but if you don't work on it, it will never happen. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sinania.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I made my comments during council comments, but I'll just add that another interesting feature of this park and a mechanism for fundraising was that although the park in its totality is known as Clyde Warren Park, every constituent part of the park actually has a different name. Literally, the rights to naming a portion of the park were auctioned off, sold off to individuals that were or companies that were willing to raise the money for the park. Interestingly, I think the portion of the funds that went into building the park, something like $57 million, if I remember correctly, were from private donations. And this was one of the ways where money was raised. And they weren't even done with the entirety of the park, because believe me, it's a big park, and it has a lot of different parts and portions serving a different function. That's it. That just struck me as a very creative way of raising money. And we learned who Clyde Warren was. And apparently some child whose father decided to donate an immense amount of money to the park. I don't know if that's true, but that's what we're told in Dallas.
That's why we have to find a real advocate in Glendale that wants to have a park named after someone in the family.
I do have a card from Mike Mohill.
Evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. I'll say it again. Pie in the sky plan. Miss Devine, how can you compare Glendale with Dallas? Dallas is a major city that can raise money. They have plenty of angels, private people to raise the money. Other than Mr. Caruso that I can think of, how many other guardian angels do we have with the city of Glendale? I tell you where you can get the money. Know where to get the money? From the unions. They got all the money. I just got through telling you we have $440 million unfunded pension debt. That's where the money is. Let's ask the fire department. Let's ask the police department. Let's ask the managers, the general employees. That's where all the money is. And that's where we've been transferring year after year. That's where there's no money in the park department. And you have this pie in the sky. If they spend $120 million in the state of Texas, can you imagine what it would cost in the state of California with our higher cost of living? How can you compare apples with oranges? It was a nice junket, wasn't it, Miss Devine, that you took, and everybody else? Now, you make promises to the all the time, just like in the park, Central Park, about everybody using the Central Park. There used to be tennis courts. Remember, Mr. Nigerian, at Central Park? And you said at the time, well, we'll take that money and we'll put it over at Glendale High School. Never happened, that improvement. But let's get back to the issue right here. We have no money to fund parks, and you had to tell the people who want the Rockhaven Sanitarium Museum, and you said, we don't have any money for that. But now you're going to find money and spend millions of dollars with this pie in the sky plan. It just goes on and on. $1.6 billion bond debt for our children to pay. Who's going to pay that? Well, the unions. That's where all the guardian angels are the city. The unions have all the money, and they support you financially or with endorsements, don't they? And if they haven't endorsed you, they've given you a pat on the back. Thank you.
Okay, and I just would like to say I do support the idea of the project. I was against using transportation dollars to fund it. I know it's a little bit early to decide where the funding's coming from. I would like to suggest, however, that There's always a pot of money for TOD, transit-oriented development funding, which is available. I know the City of LA, for example, tries to grab that for affordable housing near their transit stations. We now have a transit station at that location with the 501 Express, and in the advent of a successful bond measure, there will be a BRT route that they'll be considering right adjacent north and south of this proposed park. So perhaps that's an area where funding can be obtained, and I know we'll be thinking about that at some later point. Very good. Then we have three motions: to note and file the plan, to authorize the Phase 3 issuance of the Phase 3 RFP, and to authorize $45,000 to Melendrez for engineering services. Someone like to move F8, F1, 2, and 3?
I'll move the items.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman? Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Let's move on to the next item, Mr. Kasaki.
Next item is oral communication. This is the portion for 5 minutes. Discussion is limited to items not on the agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The City Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City Manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and a report.
Thank you. First speaker is Faith Hahn McDonald.
Good evening. Faith Hahn MacDonald, also known as Faith Hahn Taregna. I gave a copy of this to U.S. Congressman Adam B. Scheif, that I've written a letter of suggestion to Mayor Eric Garcetti regarding the L.A. County Sheriffs, because their patrol district is so huge. It includes the city of Glendale. I said, in accordance to the big Southwest states' traditions, the way it must be, all sheriffs marked black and white patrol cars must be Ford Explorer Police Interceptor, which is an on and off-road vehicle. That vehicle must be used by all other sheriff's departments. Sheriffs must have more jurisdiction than police. Thank you very much. The Macallan Single Malt Whiskey of Scotland must make friends with Toyota of America to have its Toyota Prius 2016 hybrid electric and gas with solar panels on the roof shipped to the Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland for everybody, everyday commuter from home to work and school and back use, and also all other people of the world and their state governments. Some of those Toyota Prius 2016 electric and gas with solar panels must be used by the new Scotland Yard's Traffic Services Unit for marked blue and white or black and white enforcing traffic law patrol, and all other state government police departments of the world, because the Toyota Prius 2016 hybrid and electric and gas with solar panels on the roof is designed and engineered for modern times and for the future. The Macallan's Single Malt Whiskey of Scotland must make friends with Hyundai of America to have its designers and engineers work for Rolls-Royce and Land Rover to remake the models of those car companies. Let me see. Rolls-Royce will keep its majestic grille and its hood ornaments, but the models for those cars will be mostly small ones, a few mid-size, some large, using Hyundai's modern and for the future design and engineering. Of course, there will be hybrid electric and gas with solar panels, but with a new energy-generated system from the car's running and moving parts that generates energy back into an energy storage system basically a rechargeable energy in the bottom of the trunk, which stores and reuses that recycled energy for reuse. Tesla of America may be a forerunner for that concept. Lastly, the Macallan Single Malt Whiskey of Scotland, working with Walker's Pure and Natural Butter Shortbread of Scotland and other Scottish food product and services companies must ship millions and millions of pounds of its food and product services around the world, especially around the three big holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, in all the food supermarkets, Target, Kmart, Walmart, and etc., being placed in front and center of those food supermarkets. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Mohill is next.
Evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Promises made, promises not kept. Promises made, promises not kept. The Friends of Rock Haven were disappointed a few weeks ago when the majority of council said they would like to commercialize and develop the historic Rock Haven. New Councilman Vartog Garpathian was the only person who kept his promise. If elected to council, he would find the funds to renovate the property and retain it as the park. Mrs. Devine, you promised the people up in Montrose that you would keep the sanitarium as a museum, not commercial. Mr. Sinanian, when you ran, Mr. Najera, you all promised.
I never did.
Everybody promises the people. You didn't promise them anything?
No, I didn't.
Good.
I did not.
Excuse me? You want to talk about you want to have witnesses come here next time about your promise to keep it as a museum? Please, let's not act like Mr. Ochoa, okay? Let's not act like Mr. Ochoa, and just because you have the last word here. He misleads every week when I speak, like he did the other time. Just for the record, Mr. Ochoa's salary in 2014 was $306,000. That includes, that's according to Glendale, TransparentCalifornia.com, total pay and benefits. And then we gave him a pay raise this last year also, didn't we? That's why we have no money to help the people up there in the Montrose area. For the Rock Haven, for the promises you make, because that's one of the buttons they want to hear from every person who's run for city council, that they will protect their little jewel called Rock Haven. Instead, what did you do last time here? You're going to go out and make a commercial. I hope the people remember you at the ballot box next time. Okay? Now, prior to selling Rock Haven, I was told in a private conversation by a former councilman that buying parkland for $55 a square foot was a bargain, which it should not overlook, and the city went ahead and purchased it, right? Okay? And through the years, for political reasons, council candidate strung along Friends of Rock Haven, promising to find funds to develop and preserve the integrity of the sanitarium and make it a park. Since 2008, after purchasing the sanitarium, this council and previous council have mismanaged the limited resources of our city. For example, pie in the sky, the 134 cap park. Why are we talking about that? You just got through spending, not this council, but the previous council, spent millions of dollars renovating Central Park. Millions. Now you want to take that passive green space, the only passive green space in downtown, and you want to put a museum over it instead. Another building. Wow. You're going to get an attaboy from that. But you see, the people in South Glendale or in the Central District of Glendale don't have a pact, don't have a homeowners group that's strong enough to sway you people. But you make promises to the voters up there in Montrose that you are going to keep their museum as a museum. just for the record, I was against the museum up there. I thought it was a bad idea. But you know what? Through the years, the people up there convinced me otherwise. And I'm a strong supporter. So is my wife. She convinced me too. She says, Mike, this is unique, this is beautiful, and we should keep this as a museum forever for the people of the community to remember. Instead, what are we going to have? A strip mall up there? How embarrassing. And we elected you to keep your promises, and then you go ahead. Mr. Garpathian, again, my hat goes off to you, because you said you're going to find the funds. You did not go along with your council colleagues. Thank you.
Has Mr. Garpetian found the funds? Because if he's found the funds, I'll support him.
At least he talked about it, Mr. Sinanian.
That's not a question for you, Mr. Mono. Okay. That's for Mr.
Ochoa.
The point is, he at least made the promise. Excuse me. Promises made, promises kept. No, I still have 16 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
I think the time is up.
No, it's not. I got 16 more seconds. This is oral communication.
You can sit down, Mr. Mono.
Are you using your power over me now?
No, I don't have the power of arrest.
No, but I have 13 more seconds of oral communication. It's my right, sir. Just like you have the right to run the meeting, but not to shut down a person, a concerned citizen of the city. You should know that.
Now your time is up.
You're running for a higher office.
Your time is up, Mr. Mohill. Please have a seat.
People to
Please have a
support
seat.
you
Would you like
when you run
some
your
help to
next
get
office.
to your seat? Thank you, sir.
Please, folks, don't forget Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you, Mr. Mohill. That concludes oral communications. We have no other business on the agenda except to adjourn upon proper motion.
So moved.
In the memory of Carolyn Starbird.
So moved.
We are adjourned.